Nishita Paul, final year student and member CILD, is your host for today. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this significant occasion as we come together to celebrate United Nations Day 2024. As we know, the UN Day marks the anniversary of the United Nations founding in 1945, symbolizing a global commitment to peace, security, human rights, and development. It serves as a reminder of the importance of international cooperation in addressing the global challenges and promoting a better future for all. I'd like to extend a heartfelt welcome to everyone who are joining us from across the country. Although Professor Desai, our keynote speaker, could not be with us in person due to the impending cyclone in Bhubaneswar, we are honored and grateful that Sir has accepted our invitation to be with us on this special occasion virtually. We look forward to welcoming him to our vibrant campus in the near future. Professor Bharat Desai is Director of the Institute for Advanced Studies in International Law and Diplomacy, as well as former Chairperson and Professor of International Law at Jawaharlal Nehru University. He serves as the Editor-in-Chief of the Environmental Policy and Law. A leading international law scholar, Professor Desai holds the distinction in making global scholarly contributions through more than a dozen books published by reputed publishing houses in Europe and the USA. It is a rare feat for an Indian scholar. Professor Desai's widely acclaimed treatise, International Environmental Governance, was released at the UN headquarters on 12th December 2014. Sir has provided some big ideas and solutions for the global institutional architecture, including scholarly discourse on the planetary future. These ideas have received accolades in official communications from the President of the United Nations General Assembly and the UN Secretary General, as well as the Prime Ministers of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK, the Presidents of France and Russian Federation, and the Office of the President of Human Rights Council. Professor Desai, thank you for joining us virtually today. We are honored to hear your thoughts. Sir, please.
Yeah, shall we start?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Okay, at the outset, let me profusely thank my esteemed elder and respected Professor N. Mitra. I have been really waiting always for an opportunity to meet him and seek his blessings. We tried; it couldn't materialize this time, but maybe some other time, And this is a really historic opportunity where we are now celebrating the 79th anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations. Today is a very auspicious day, the UN Day, and I have the pleasure and privilege to, I have come personally to KIIT School of Law in 2019. This was just before the pandemic, and this was another opportunity. And since there was some kind of a demand request from the students and the faculty, we thought we will make it online. I have at the outset, let me apologize because there are some technical issues that have been almost dislocated from my established time tested slot, for 20 asked to vacate my room. I've been asked to vacate my room, because some very wise people have come, being a messenger, I troubled them, so I have been asked to vacate the room. So I'm sitting on a different laptop, different internet connection. So pardon me if it gets disconnected, disrupted, and will try to compensate, in some other way. So I'll try to be as short as possible. Let me at the outset, and I'll give citations of a couple of those three articles which are written in October, September, and August. 3 months on all revolving around the United Nations itself. And let me mention that we are living in a very difficult time. United Nations is under siege, is under attack. Unfortunately, what I called as the shooting the messenger. And messengers have always been under attack, ranging from the Mahabharata when Lord Krishna went as a peace envoy. He was attacked, by the renegade Kaurav prince Duryodhana. And most recently, when the Secretary General of United Nations spoke up very upfront, chastising the one of the countries which is now playing havoc in the Middle East, asking them to desist, saying that it's escalation after escalation. Immediately, the foreign minister of the country attacked him, declaring him to be a persona non grata. unprecedented action. Never ever it happened in the history of United Nations. And you could see, of course, the very belatedly the UN Security Council came around, and saying that no, you should not do it. Very lame duck response to that. This usually happens everywhere in every society. As I said, same thing when I did here in my own school, setting up a faculty wall of honor for 120 outstanding scholars. It upset and annoyed plenty of people, and you have to pay the price. Being a messenger, always. So we need never do it. My central message today will be: please, for heaven's sake, never shoot a messenger. Now let me start, with paying tribute to my outstanding teacher. He's no more. Last year he passed away, Professor Rahmatullah Khan, who actually introduced me to the law of international organization. And I paid, I delivered the memorial lecture to Rahmatullah Khan last year at the Symbiosis Law School on 2nd of November 2023. So if anyone has the interest, this is available on JNU's YouTube link, as well as maybe possibly on Symbiosis website. And I will again like to underscore that this is exactly the beauty and majesty of a very sound and a genuine teacher who like the parents, they initiate their children. Similarly, a genuine, a very well-intentioned teacher will introduce. And I go back to that time when Professor Rahmatullah Khan introduced me to the law of United Nations, especially going to the library and finding the classical commentaries on United Nations, Goodrich, Hembrow, and Leland, all from Columbia University. I wanted to do that kind of a classical work sitting in my university, in my school. Somehow my circumstances never allowed me that. If they could do it, of course we could also do it. But again, thanks to Professor Khan, his own treatise, his own PhD thesis was on implied powers of United Nations. Very few people they know about it. 1970 publication. And Rahmatullah Khan is known for those things. I already put it here. I just flipped through it. Implied powers of United Nations, Vikas publications, 1970. And second reason for which we need to again remember and pay tribute to Rahmatullah Khan is that the original idea for the National Law School was mooted by none other than Rahmatullah Khan, 1973. Here is I've already circulated to plenty of people. Please take a look at that, published from Bombay by Tripathi, 1973, National School of Law, a proposal. 13 years before the first law school in India was established in Bangalore. Now let me just briefly, this is the structure of my talk. I hope and pray that I will be able to cover that. One is that I will just take you to the setting, that how I was introduced to this entire subject, very fascinating area of law of international organization, and especially one of the preeminent entity called the United Nations. The making of the United Nations, the working of the United Nations, the role of the Secretary General of the United Nations, the whole business of reform talk, and how do we move into a common future. So let me start with the setting. My original work started around the time when I published a talk which I gave at the legal department of the World Bank on 15th of January 1999 on revitalizing international environmental institutions, the UN Task Force report and beyond. When I went into the whole nitty-gritty of it, it appeared to be full of problems, full of problems. The entire institutional architecture. The problem does not per se lie with the United Nations, I would say. We should never ever, blame an architecture or an institution. Largely because these all again, second issue which I like to underscore is most of the institutions which we speak about, they are all human constructs. They are not infallible. If the human beings are not infallible, institutions also cannot be infallible. So they suffer from the same problems. They are largely, most of the criticism leveled against United Nations is because of the human problem, because of it's a state-centric system. United Nations is wedded to what is called, the sovereign states. They consider themselves to be sovereign and equal, And most of the problems, some problems which are inserted into the Charter of United Nations was to accommodate those competing concerns for sovereignties, their ego problems, their hard-headed national interests, They had to be accommodated if you wanted to, live by one of the classical examples of multilateralism. Because United Nations was sought to create what is called institutionalized architecture for international cooperation. You had no other thing. And we saw it just when the League of Nations, for the first time, a political organization was set up. 1919, it collapsed within 20 years. It had much more contradictions. But as I wrote in one of the articles, in 2020, where on the century of peacemaking at the Treaty of Versailles, looking back to look ahead, that the lessons which we learned in the experience of the League of Nations, they came handy when the United Nations was set up. These, and that is why you have at the outset in the preamble of the Charter of United Nations itself it says, no, we the peoples of United Nations to save the succeeding generations from the scourge of war. It says, uses the word, very hard word, harsh word called shrap hai, koi curse hai. Because we saw during the two world war, first world war and the second world war took, millions of people were perished. Millions of people perished. And so here the same countries, they came together, the victorious power, and they said, we want to save the succeeding generations from the scourge of war. And this was also one of the important things, I thought, if possible, let me briefly small video clip, because I will not go into the great details, how the things came up, but the making of United Nations, I will just briefly scan through, Second is again this three title, what I call the trilogy. I just flag it, because they initial idea which I got, it culminated into these three titles, 2004, 2010, and 2014. Institutionalizing international environmental, multilateral environmental agreements, and international environmental governance. This all spoke about the UN-centric, architecture of global governance. I wanted to cover one part because it's like an ocean. You cannot cover everything. You cannot cover refugee law, the criminal law, the humanitarian law, the human rights law. I have to just focus upon one part. But when I peeled the layers, it was full of problematic. And the second successive thing which I have covered, I'm not covering everything, are three exercises, major exercises which I took, in 2021, 2022, and 2023. And the fourth is about to come, on perspectives of the women scholars, and the fifth will come out early next year on the planetary future. These are all ideational things where all United Nations is at the center of. Now, as I mentioned, here is the map of the United Nations system. Probably most of you will have access to that. I will cut it short because it has the main organs called General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council. You have the Secretariat and the International Court of Justice. There is one organ which is dormant, which has ceased work, Trusteeship Council, because it outlives utility. And I will revert to that toward the end. I will again not go into the great issue about the whole debate which revolve around arising from the first, what is called the reparations case, reparations case which arose out of the assassination of the first United Nations mediator in Palestine, Count Foch Bernadotte, where the matter was referred for an advisory opinion of the International Court, and the court said, the charter does not expressly confer upon the organization the capacity, it has to claim reparations, either damage caused to the victim or to the persons who are entitled to it. And this is by implication that since the organization of the sovereign states must have the enabling power to claim any such harm which is caused to one of its nationals, because United Nations, draws its people from those sovereign states itself, Now, briefly about the making of United Nations. Here is the quick details, probably, as we saw, that the series of those confabulations took place even at the Second World War was raging, Series of those confabulations at Tehran, Moscow, Dumbarton, Potsdam, San Francisco, And finally, the Charter of United Nations, after the 3-month-long conference at the Opera House in San Francisco, where on 26th of June 1945, the UN Charter was adopted. And it came into being on 24th of October 1945. So today we are celebrating the 79th anniversary of that United Nations. And here is the picture of those three dramatis personae, these big three, who were instrumental in giving a push to the formation of United Nations. Winston Churchill of UK, Roosevelt of the President of the United States, and Joseph Stalin, the strong man from the then Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The fourth person you cannot see, who was very much part of the architecture was, General de Gaulle from France. He is not seen the picture because none of these three people liked him. But France was very much part of the things, because France was under occupation. and after Germany was defeated, France was liberated, and that is how of the Security Council. Here are some of the vignettes. Let me briefly, if possible, I can screen this small video clip, which about the inaugural the talk which was given by the then American President Harry Truman. So this is the story of that making of the Charter of United Nations, and when Harry Truman spoke about it, and as we saw, immediately as soon as the Charter of United Nations, you saw this was the time when the United States had already dropped two atomic weapons on the on two Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Although they swore by not to wage war and other things, we have seen that in the post charter period, millions of lives have been lost. More than 250 conflicts have taken place. And today, as of now, if we measure, one-fourth of the world lives in conflict zones. So we need to be well aware of this graphic graphic reality, about the circumstances in which the United Nations actually work. Let me quickly mention those, as to what are those main milestones, where the United Nations has contributed immensely. And I would say, like the beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. If you want to see that more than available to you, like the battle for decolonization, human rights, permanent sovereignty over natural resources, racial discrimination, right to development, environment protection, rights of the women and political rights, apartheid. The whole architecture of apartheid largely was dismantled because of the key role played by none other than United Nations itself. And here is the very famous, those students and others who really want to go into the things, please take a look at the 1970 Friendly Relations Declaration, which was basically at the 25th anniversary of United Nations, a restatement to celebrate, the purposes and principles of the Charter, 1970. Prohibition of use of force, non-intervention, peaceful settlement of disputes, sovereign equality of states, international cooperation, good faith and equal rights and self-determination of people. These are the sacrosanct principle by which the United Nations, swears by. Now, some of these major areas which, I will say how the United Nations works actually, what it does actually. This has become so intertwined that you do not even you take it for granted. You take it for granted. Like many of this, our students also tell us, you did this, so what? So we have taken United Nations saying that, so what? If the United Nations does this, so what? But look at the immense contribution. Plenty of those things with which we live with, they would simply not have been possible if United Nations had not played the role. Like in the arena of space, the entire space architecture, space governance, for instance, would have been lawless. Still, there are problems with the space governance, but yes, the architecture, most of those treaties concerning space, were enshrined under the auspice of United Nations only. Environment, right, from 1972 to 2024, when the Summit of the Future took place, all those global conferencing technique has been perfected by the United Nations, the General Assembly. As I call General Assembly as the conductor of the grand orchestra. Disarmament. There is continuous debate going on in the forum of United Nations, with reference to disarmament, elimination of nuclear weapons and weapons in general. Human rights, the whole architecture, protection and promotion of the cardinal, principles of human rights. You have the Human Rights Council sitting in Geneva. There is a Human Rights Commissioner who is appointed by the Secretary General of United Nations. The whole constant struggle which we are having, is for promotion and protection of human rights of women. The entire architecture, if you see today, women are like most of the conflict zones, they say, weaponization of the sexual violence, rape as an instrument of warfare. All conflict zones, women have been adversely affected. Children have been adversely affected, like ranging from Ukraine to Gaza, for instance. And the latest figure they show that in the last 2 years, when the Ukraine war has taken place, Ukraine's population has shrunk by 1 million. Ukraine's population has shrunk by 1 million. A small tiny Gaza Strip where the Palestinians, having their little toe on the, on the Mediterranean Sea, also so I would say insensitive that they say there are more than 45,000 people have died. Most of them, they are women and children. Most of them, they are women and children. They have perished. Whole disastrous things have taken place. Population, again, is one of the biggest issue on which UN has contributed. I will not go into this great detail, but the whole debate which has been going on high-level summits and conferences, like well-being of the people and the planet. I'll just flip through it. Peace, dignity, and equality of a healthy planet, which has also been a central theme of some of the United Nations conferences, And the entire calendar and meetings, if you see, it's sin to be believed, because the time will not permit me to go into each of the organ and what the UN does. It's a full of activity. Even if you take the example of the General Assembly itself, each year minimum 300 resolutions are adopted, and there are resolutions and resolutions covering almost everything under the sun. Although there could be an argument about the legal character of the resolution, but they carry high normative value. Now there has been a consistent debate about the reform, like the Secretary of United Nations have said that, well, you cannot, you are living with a situation today, you have an inherited system, the grandchildren cannot live with a system which was given by their grandparents, that you need to have a 21st century architecture to address 21st century problem. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also been speaking about the whole issue, that we cannot deal with the present day problems with the architecture which we have inherited from the past. So everybody is talking about reform of United Nations, and I will come to briefly, if the time permits, about that what ails, what do we do actually, and here is a little peep into the world in which we live in. We need to contextualize the situation when we are talking about how horrific situations are there, where in that single space, United Nations is the troubleshooter, is the main messenger, and is a chief executive officer. The Secretary General really leads from the front. He receives all the brickbats, all the adverse comments, because he as like a lonely sparrow, he runs from pillar to post. And here is the situation. Like the world without glaciers, the global humanitarian crisis, the extreme climatic events, where millions of people will be affected, And they say, let us UN figures show, that there are millions of people. It requires something like more than 700 million people, who need humanitarian assistance. 700 million people. United Nations with its limited resources have been able to raise something $65 billion just to feed people, to ensure that the people don't go hungry, they don't die. Look at it. Somebody is doing that. Somebody is actually doing that. How do they do it? They say, come what may. And if you see in the conflict zones, especially Russia, Ukraine, and Israel, and in Gaza, more than 200 United Nations officials have died. The peacekeepers have died. The civil servants have died. They have paid the price. They refuse to leave. They refuse to leave. The UN convoys are standing at the entrance of Gaza, just to ensure that people don't die on the other side. As the Israelis, they do the gatekeeping, for instance. So here is a sentry, a messenger which is holding the fort. It's waiting there, irrespective of all the trouble that you have. You have the exasperated global poverty, unbelievable kind of a situation. Violence against women, there are 736 million women in the world who have been subjected to almost 1 in 3 women around the world have been subjected to physical or sexual violence. Really face, and I published some article with one of my students, Mamita Mandal, who graduated from NUJS and did PhD with me, that in EU itself, they try to put a cost of the sexual violence that came to a staggering figure of 366 billion euro. If you try to put a cost on it, nuclear weapons have grown, unbelievable kind of a situation. And you have the people, as I said, they live in the conflict zones, for instance. So now the reform talk, it could be across different organs: General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, and the Trusteeship Council. I won't have the time to cover everything, but let me see if I can really flip through. And there are talk, what is to be reformed? How do you want to reform? Everybody talks. There are diplomats who speak about reform in other nations. The problem is there is nothing to say wrong in the other nations. Architecture may not give myself to the task. All you need is the good intentions, bona fide intentions, honesty. You allow the United Nations to work. You allow the civil servants to work in. You don't give them latitude. You don't give the resources. A country like United Nations, United States, had not been paying its UN dues. Almost 1/4 of the UN budget has been contributed by United States. I don't know the exact figure, but around approximately, every year it pays just 10%. There are billions of dollars of due. United Nations does not have the money, and still it raises, appeals to the people to provide money. So you don't give resources, you create the hurdles, you attack the messengers, and yet you expect that the institution to work wonders. And most of the countries do not want a powerful international organization. That is the bottom line. As I said, the stronger the Secretary General of United Nations, the greater attack. One of the latest article which I wrote for my school's blog, called "Shooting the Messenger." Like the Antonio Guterres has been attacked. The second Secretary General of United Nations, wanted to go to the conflict site in Democratic Republic of Congo. The powerful states asked him not to go there, and he said, "No, I will do my duty. I will go." He never came back. Dag Hammarskjöld never came back. His death is still a mystery. Boutros Ghali, a professor of international law from Cairo University, put his foot down and he said, "I will create." He came out with the agenda for peace. I said, "I want a standing army at the beck and call of the United Nations." And powerful countries said no. So Boutros Ghali was never forgiven. He was never given the second term. He remains the only Secretary General who was not given the second term. They never forgave him. And here my take will be, I think all that hope that you have for any reform talk or any kind of a push, is the only democratic organ the United Nations has, is the United Nations General Assembly. And as I call it, it's perform the role of a conductor of a grand orchestra. There are series of events. I've just prepared the list of the events at the 78th session of the General Assembly. Series of those confabulation around the 5th of September it starts, till the end of August next year. The two summits which took place back to back, 2023, the Sustainable Development Goals Summit, which again tried to came out the rescue plan, because most of the SDGs are very. The Secretary General has said that by year 2030, there is no possibility for giving effect to the Sustainable Development Goals. Just 12% Sustainable Development Goals could be sanitation, education, gender equality, human rights, these are the fundamental tenets which the people of the world want, and you won't be able to attain that, because the graphic reality is 1/4 of the world lives in conflict zone. Most of your energy and resources are being filtered away. We just had the summit of the future in New York on 22nd and 23rd of September, where it came out with a pact for the future. Again, it's a negotiated pact, it's a compromise text. We cannot expect much more on that. I'm working on this entire issue where I've invited some of the global thought leaders to provide their ideas, on planetary future. 11, 10 to 11 articles have already published. By end of December, we'll publish another set of about dozen articles. So hopefully we'll come out with some kind of additional contribution. It's again, the scholars shall have to hold the fort to provide a window to the world, so far as our future itself is concerned. And the General Assembly resolution, then the constitutional instrument, I will not have the time to go into that, but at least there are some institutions which are established through a resolution passed by the General Assembly. And there are many occasions when General Assembly resolution will have the legal character. Yeah.
I'll request the participants to keep your audio closed, please. Sir, please continue, sir.
Okay, here is the global conferencing technique. There are these 10 important conferences which took place right from 1972 Stockholm Conference to 2024 Stockholm Conference. What I am indicating is this global conferencing technique. These conferences may not resolve the problems, but they provide a huge congregation, which is the sign of multilateralism at its best. Yesterday I had the opportunity to again join a virtual panel discussion with organized by some friends and colleagues, former Mauritius Ambassador Milan Mitraban in Mauritius, and the theme which we discussed was on multilateralism, that how multilateralism need to be strengthened and promoted, because there is no other way out. There are a series of those problems where the countries need to come together, where this supposedly sovereign equal country like Mauritius and country like United States or India, there is no comparison, but theoretically, all countries are sovereign and equal. Okay, and what else could be a best example? I gave that yesterday, the example of Mauritius, which was being supported by a large number of other countries, which could push through the General Assembly resolution seeking an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice. In 2019, the General Assembly gave an opinion asking United States, to return the Chagos Archipelago, which was excised when Mauritius became independent in 1965. So here is an example that it works. It does. Small, tiny country like Mauritius could ensure that a former colonial power and permanent member of the Security Council could be pushed and could concede. Now they are working on the agreement about the modalities and nitty-gritty for return of the Chagos Archipelago. Apart from just barring the Diego Garcia military base, which Americans and the UK will keep. But the very fact that Chagos could be returned to Mauritius is a really sign of that's celebration of multilateralism, where all the countries came together. Large number of countries passed the resolution seeking an advisory opinion. So you have the numerous example of success. We have taken the success for granted. We should celebrate that success. We should pay tribute to the main agency or the main actor which is there, and also the chief executive officer of the United Nations, who has a large team. There are volunteers and those fine international civil servants. I am not eulogizing everything. I know there are problems. There are genuine problems. No, but like they say, at least you need to put upfront what is working. And of course, once we say that there are problems, the problems could be, of course, be addressed. Problems could be addressed. They need to be addressed. Security Council as the sentinel, very well. Most of the faculty and students will know that the Security Council is the sentinel, has the primary responsibility for maintenance of international peace and security. And one of the only catch the Security Council has, is that it carries the veto power. Okay, there are 5 powers which are more equal than the others, and yet if you can see, I've called out about a 20 years trajectory from 2004 to 2004 for 24. Starting with the issue of terrorism, in the Middle East, where the Security Council got engaged and passed a resolution till on 18th of October last week, when the UN Security Council adopted resolution under Chapter 7 of the Charter imposing sanctions, to defuse the crisis in Haiti. 18th of December, 18th of October 2024. There are series of those things. So it does not work in every situation, like Ukraine, because the consensus was not possible. Like Gaza, where any even talk about even ceasefire was impossible because there are hard-headed vested interests. The permanent members of the Security Council have their own allies and proxies and their own satellite states, whom they would like to protect. So those are the ground realities, and yet there are situations which will provide some salvage the situation. Let me mention, that all was hope was not lost. After the Russia's what you call special military operation in Ukraine, the General Assembly called a emergency special session, adopted a resolution, and most of the people and the commentators, the scholars must analyze. I saw there was deafening quiet. Most of the scholars keep quiet because I'm told many of the scholars also go where the grass is green. They don't go where the hard-headed things are there. This is exactly the scholarship which we need to promote in India. And if you see, the General Assembly resolution provides a ray of hope. Assembly resolution said, as and when a Security Council resolution is adopted, Security Council resolution where a permanent member casts a veto, within 10 days of the exercise of the veto, the emergency special session of the General Assembly will be convened, and the veto wielding power country which exercises the veto will come to the Assembly and will give explanation. Asking a permanent member using the veto to give an explanation itself is a big thing. Because they say best disinfectant is the sunlight. Best disinfect the sunlight. You ask them to account for it. And so what I call this in some of my articles, what I have written is that this is basically blunting the edges of the veto. There has been so much infatuation about veto. India herself has been seeking that. G4 country with Brazil, Japan, Germany, and India, we have been ourselves been seeking a permanent seat. But as we saw that the veto is almost non-negotiable for the 5 permanent members. But why not? If you can blunt the edges of the veto, if you make the exercise of veto a rarity or not much attractive, it can work. So that will open the door for, as I argued, although we ourselves, we know India also knows very well, India's foreign minister, India's prime minister also knows very well, we are asking for revitalization of the Security Council, and also permanent membership of the Security Council. Now, no one is talking about the veto. Okay, that we will have a third, probably as and when the doors are open, probably we'll have a third category of countries which are called having the permanent membership without veto. I would say that also will be a great achievement. To be sitting in that hallowed chamber of the Security Council would itself be an achievement. Where a country like India, as I have been repeatedly asking, India to be a global solution provider. 1/6 of country with 1/6 of the population, country which aspires to become the third largest, what is called the GDP in the world, for instance, with so much kind of a civilization, what else it can do? All that you require is the troubleshooter. You need the people, you need the idea, and you need the architecture. And architecture will only come from India's knowledge centers, not from bureaucracy, not from business centers. We need to realize, as early we realize, it will be better for us. Action for the peacekeeping. Again, plenty of peacekeeping missions are there. More than 70,000 peacekeepers are on the ground. India herself has been contributing large number of peacekeepers. There are many of the peacekeepers are under attack. As we saw, United Nations interim force in Lebanon came under attack. 3 times the Israeli forces, attacked the compound. Look at the grave risk with the peacekeeper themselves they face, for instance. So it was not easy to maintain peace, keep peace in this troubled world, And one of the important agenda items, I'm indicating some of the areas which could be potential PhD topics for the students, and for the teachers, like the women, peace and security. It's again a very celebrated area which has been opened when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, she was instrumental in pushing for this, And since 2000, the Security Council has adopted 10 dedicated resolutions on human peace and security, which they have been really pushing a lot of those agenda, on gender and climate security, on women's access to justice, leadership, political participation, and most importantly, things did work. The UN for the first time declared that they attained gender parity in the UN headquarters. This is not a small achievement. This current Secretary General really pushed the envelope, and ensured that the UN staff members in the headquarters in New York, they have attained gender parity. That means almost men and women are equal. So charity begins at home. Although there is a long way to go, if you really want to attain gender equality, etc., they say gender justice. They say if the things work at this stage, if the United Nations, has its own way, it will really expedite. Otherwise, it will take minimum 200 years to attain gender kind of a gender equality. Anywhere, next 200 years, for instance. So much the problem, because many of the issues arise out of the this lack of representation or participation of women in most of the decision making processes, the organs, and also maintenance of patriarchy. Like they say, when you talk about the issue like female genital mutilation, more than 200 is one of the biggest issue. The female genital mutilation is the biggest issue. Half of the American states have prohibited it. We have written a full article with my student, on elimination of female genital mutilation, protection of or making international human rights law work. It's published in the Indian Journal of International Law. If anyone is interested, you can maybe ask us. Now, I'll not go into this criminal justice system where the Security Council establishes its own subsidiary organ. Like in Yugoslavia, in Rwanda, in Sierra Leone, there are at least half a dozen ad hoc criminal tribunals were established by the United Nations Security Council to ensure that post-conflict justice mechanisms, they really work. I will not go into the great details, just cut it short. Lebanon, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, plenty of those places. Now let me come to the main dramatist persona, the person who holds the person who is under attack, the main troubleshooter, the messenger. And here is the Secretary General of the United Nations, as I mentioned, on 1st of October, as I said, the Secretary General said that I condemn the broader, what is called the Middle East conflict with escalation after escalation. This must stop. And this really touched the raw nerve, caused alarm bells ringing in Israel, and drew a swift reaction from the combative foreign minister of Israel. His name is Israel Katz, and he crossed the limits of his office, where he declared the Secretary General of the United Nations a persona non grata. You cannot declare an international civil servant a persona non grata. Those who know about it, under the Vienna Convention on diplomatic relations under 1961, a person is present in your territory, you can ask him to leave the territory, not otherwise. And this whole business, of throwing away a person does not apply to international organizations. Because United Nations is governed by its own general convention called the General Convention on the Privileges and Immunities of United Nations, 1946. This convention, it entered into force on September 17, 1946. Now, here is a Secretary General who has been, as I said, has been very proactive. Very proactive. He digs out the powers. The power is almost there, You need to see the things, like it's literally like walking the talk. Literally, you walk the talk. You don't merely, most of the people, they while away time and, they keep crying and complain. Here is the secretary who seeks to bail the cat. He invoked last year his residuary power under Article 99 of the Charter of the United Nations, where the Charter enabled the Secretary General to bring to the attention of the Security Council any situation which threatens international peace and security. And he wrote an unprecedented letter to the President of the Security Council on December 6, 2023. So, as I said, if the Secretary General is strong enough, and if he actively seeks to carry out the charter mandate, or tries to create some of those new proposals and ideas, these Secretary Generals are also not spared. We have this is the ninth Secretary General we are living with. Antonio Guterres has still, I think, about 2 more years to go, and we'll see how it takes. So if some of you are interested, here are I mentioned the 3 articles which I published recently. The links are available. They're all published from the place where I have been working, the School of International Studies blog. Shooting the Messenger, article published on 8th of October, UN peacekeeping missions, September 18th. And thirdly, making available the humanitarian assistance on 23rd of August. These things will provide a detailed issues so far as the actual working of the different components, because it's like an ocean. United Nations is like an ocean. Now let me see about the how do we move into the future, so that I will quickly and quickly move into what possible things are there. I'll just indicate the trends here. I already mentioned about the trajectory. I've already been for last 3 years. I have been engaged in this ideational process where some, I would say, at least 75 to 80 global thought leaders have come to my rescue. Ranging, I will not be. I have the list which I'll mention. Ranging from all top universities now, and it led to this curating of these titles. Our Earth Matters in 2021, envisioning our environmental future, and third is the regulating global climate change. Fourth will come out by the end of the year. I wanted to have a view as if the woman look at the problematic. Does it really look different? And about a dozen eminent women scholars have provided contributions, which we will come out with that volume by end of the year, and early next year, early middle of the next year, will come out with another volume called the planetary future. And here are the about some 23 list of those contributions are list which is already published in my journal called Environmental Policy and Law. I will not read it out. Now, here are the what I call them the low-hanging fruits. When we talk about the reform of United Nations, the pathway to the future, what possible issues could be there? These are the issues which we need to. Our eyes should not be only limited to grabbing a permanent membership of the Security Council. There are many low-hanging fruits, which we must aim at. Like the global problem which we have been talking about is that in the years to come, the global climate problem is going to be so severe. The storms are going to rise, in sea levels are going to be there, the Antarctic ice sheets are melting, Arctic is in deep trouble, the third pole, Himalayas is also in deep trouble. You have the landslides and host of those issues. We refuse to see the warning bells. Secretary recently went to the Mount Everest. In the backdrop of the Mount Everest, he released a video saying that please look at how this precarious condition in which we are there. Please listen to me. Please pay heed to my call. And most of the people, you refuse to listen to the messenger. So here are something which we hope that one of the main instrumentality called the UN Environment Program sitting in Nairobi. It has a I have a proposal to upgrade it to a specialized agency which will be available. Second is about a dormant organ called the Trusteeship Council of United Nations. When I put this proposal in 1999, a lot of people had a derisory comment saying that no, this is not practical, it will not work. Antonio Guterres, in his own report, our common agenda, specifically mentioned that the time has come to give a new mandate to the Trusteeship Council and to revive and give it a repurpose for global commons and global environment. Which the entity is there, the Trusteeship Council Hall is there, it will not cost you anything because you need a global supervisory organ which will really help you to gravitate to some of the problem which the Pact of the Future has really mentioned, like the whole rights of the future generations, because the future generations will be really facing the problematic. Future expansion of the Security Council, as I mentioned, the low-hanging fruit again, all that doable thing could be with an opening of a new front called the permanent membership without veto, because everybody wants it and the permanent members are not going to cede the space. So I think you have to leave, because things are not, nothing is perfect in this life. Nothing is perfect, and you can't renegotiate the charter completely. You can't throw away baby with the bathwater. You have to live with the reality. Everybody knows the limitations. And finally, the new issues which is now spoken about is the possibility for having a United Nations going on as a follow-up to the summit of the future. Probably, I think the Secretary of United Nations will appoint a new High Commissioner for Future Generation, because there is a whole debate about rights of the future generation, that the present generation owes an obligation and duty to the future generation to pass on at least not in an adverse condition that what we ourselves inherited, or we need to improve the situation. Things are going from bad to worse. That whether in the years to come, whether this planet Earth, the only planet that we have, will it be habitable? Who else will build the cat? And the only forum which really facilitates to do these negotiations, provide a platform for the churning of the ideas is the United Nations. And we need to really take it seriously. This is a blueprint for the UNEPO, which I mentioned about it, the specialized agency for United Nations, the trusteeship council. Already is published, in some of those leading global journals, and here is something, about the repurpose, the actual mandate which I ended up rewriting, and finally I'll just conclude, saying that, well, I think I drew a picture which is reasonably a kind of a little optimistic picture, because I don't want to have the pulse of gloom. I have never ever done that. Those who cry, a lot of people, they cry and grieve and complain and run away. हम क्या कर सकते हैं, हम क्या कर सकते हैं, घर जाके खाना खा के सो सकते हैं, आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते हो. So I would say, as a scholar, at least my duty and obligation is to stand up and provide ideas. This is what I have been really pushing, asking a lot of people, that we need to have these ideational things. Since I made a special choice to stay on India, as a Deshbhakt, true Deshbhakt, I never went out, to make a career outside. So I have struggled hard. It took enormous time. It's a really challenging task to have your ideas to be to make an impact 12,000 kilometers away at the UN headquarters in New York, where the actual global decision making takes place. It's a challenge. We have to live with that challenge. And I would hope and pray that our universities, do our part of the job. Whether anybody listens to you or not, it's a different matter. Ideas never go waste. Like you are sowing the seeds, these seeds, when they show that no one can suppress the seed. We need to hope against it. And most of the research which we do, global problematic, is it has to be solution oriented. Theoretical, blaming something called an abstract entity will not help us out. You need concrete ideas when millions of people whose lives are at stake, who will simply otherwise perish. So I think the task is cut out. We hope and pray, and I hope that the KIIT School of Law, where this new Center for International Law and Diplomacy, has been proposed to be, Jinya has been speaking about. Professor Mitra has given his blessings, and Professor Rose Varghese has also mentioned in the speech. So I hope and pray that you have a task cut out, and you have a strong team of students and the faculty which will be able to really do it, because international law because a country of India's size, might, capacity, like the Prime Minister himself, and I have no hesitation in mentioning in my one-on-one meeting with the Indian Prime Minister, I did not mention him anything. I said I want you as a Prime Minister of my country to speak language of international law. I'm not saying that I cannot take full credit, but the very fact that he's very hardworking, I would say very, very razor sharp. He has started in most of these speeches. He says relevance of international law. International law needs to be taken seriously. His foreign minister says commitment to international law, dialogue and diplomacy. Only he was in Kazan at the G20 summit, where he said the negotiation, dialogue and diplomacy. Conflicts are not the solution, and dialogue and diplomacy are one of the principal instruments for maintenance of international peace and security. They are ingrained in the Charter of United Nations. Pacific means for settlement of international dispute. So international law has a I would say very, very, very so valuable role to play. We have to take international law seriously, and by necessary implication, the Charter of United Nations also seriously, and we need to really swear by it. We hope and pray that by next year, when 80th anniversary of the Charter will be celebrated, probably we'll be able to see some positive progress. We need to keep making effort. Like they say in Bhagavad Gita, the effort is in your hand, not the outcome. So we'll